Weebology. I'm your host, Ricky.
And I'm Ethan.
And how y'all doing out there,
How's it
friends?
hanging, guys?
You doing well? Yeah?
I'm crushing it.
You're just crushing the things today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm here, still alive.
I definitely walked in.
Surprisingly.
This man is looking chipper. He looks like he's had a good week.
Yeah, so I'm here. I'm getting to talk about anime. And is there anything else you need in life there, Rick?
Not really. At least not right now. Not in the moment.
Yeah, I think that kind of sums them all up.
I got my burr. I got my boys. We're good to go. I got all y'all, which makes me feel pretty good.
My boys.
Yeah, all my boys and ladies out there.
And ladies, of course.
So today, what are we talking about in this episode?
So this week we were going to talk about some of our favorite villains.
Ooh.
I think we both have about 3, so it ends up working out
perfect.
pretty good.
We're getting seedy this episode. We're getting into the villainy.
Right, and then for the second half, basically I'm going to tell you why you're wrong about Kisuke Urahara being overrated.
Yeah, we're doing a little segment called Over Underrated, where we take a character and we take a stance.
Yeah,
we take
mine
a
is
moment.
Obviously correct, first of all.
No, absolutely not.
I think for perpetuity, I would say.
Well, yeah, okay. We'll leave it for this section. We're gonna get heated then. We're gonna get a little heated. It's gonna get fired. But I have a quick question for you, Ethan. The last episode. We were talking about our boy James Cameron with Alita Battle Angel.
Jimmy Cams, of course.
Jimmy Cams, our boy Jimmy Cams, who is diving into that anime lore to make some pretty dank movie.
Some stout movies.
Some sweet movies. And I wanted to hear your thoughts. If Jimmy Cam were to go round 2 and take on an anime, what would you hope is an anime that he would tackle in a movie? Given all the resources he has at his disposal, literally Hollywood at his beck and call, on his doorstep on their knees, please give me a career.
He's crawling after him.
Right, and he comes out the door with a big-ass script from an anime. What would be the anime you'd want him to tackle in terms of a full-length movie?
Yeah, so I think what's really cool is he has done Avatar. So he's been in the, anime-ish / real life space, because there is normal characters in that too.
And Alita Battle Angel, it did considerably well, and even better if you remember that it is based on a manga plot. So, I mean...
I honestly feel like if they had taken Ghost in the Shell and let him direct it, it would have shit all over everything.
I think it was Gigok who said it the best. That was the most okay anime movie of all time, and I could never get over that because it's so right. I've seen it. It's not bad, but man, they could have done so much more with it.
For sure.
Yeah, for me, and I know we'll get to talking about it eventually, but if he were to tackle a Castlevania movie, that would be pretty damn good. He can bring vampires back from the Twilight bullshit realm.
Well, it would kind of just be Van Helsing, but like a good version of that movie.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just got a little more, basically took the anime based on a game and took that storyline specifically and made it a movie. It's only 12 episodes. Right. So, I mean, if they took that whole through line and made it like a nice 2 hour and change movie, I think James Cameron, our boy Jimmy Cams could really do some stout work with it. JC. Jimmy C.
In other words, we love Jimmy Cams for broaching the massive chasm between, what's okay in real life and anime. And
it's had a long run of really just hardship. Just the live action hardship,
Yeah, I mean,
memes galore about.
Can I just say that Death Note movie was trash?
Oh no.
Mob Psycho freaking movie, what the fudge?
Well,
the Bleach movie, absolutely ass. Here's my question.
Yeah.
Do you think you could make a live action version of Seven Deadly Sins? And does it end up looking like Bleach?
First answer, no. Second answer, abso-fucking-lutely.
Yeah, I think so
absolutely. Too. There's a lot in that show that I don't think would translate very well to live action. I mean,
none of the humor would work.
No, there's only so much live action can do.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's why anime is so great. Is because you can do things in drawing and animation that you cannot do in real life.
Right, and it makes, supernatural possible.
Oh, yeah. That's why I watch it, to watch stuff I can't see in real life.
I mean, look back at Harry Potter 1. Like, the magic was kind of whack. Like, if you look at it, first
105%
of all,
whack.
Put your pitchforks away. It's like one of my favorite series of all time, and I've seen all of them like a billion times.
Man, I was about to light my torch there too. For a second.
So I do love Harry Potter, but objectively, go back and watch the first one, and you're like, dang, that actually kind of was ass magic.
And then
it's just like light in a fan.
Ethan, what do you know about ass magic?
So moving on, favorite villains. Rick, I'd like you to go first there, bud. Hit me with your
drop
best.
That. Okay, so one thing I did actually want to ask, since we're on the villain topic, I want to take a couple minutes to discuss with you. What do you feel makes a good villain? What about a villain? If you want to see a villain in an anime specifically, what characteristics do you want to see in a villain? Do you care for the villains that are like a Frieza? They're always villains. They've always been villains. They're never going to change. They're that pillar of evil in a show, or more of an a anti-villain where they're doing bad things for their perception of good. Like, what do you feel is what you're looking for in a villain?
I think it's easier for an audience to connect with a villain that has a bad way of getting to what he believes is a good outcome, like a good for the world kind of outcome.
I mean, I agree. You look at the modern villains. Look at Deathmonger in Black Panther. Right. I mean, he was one of the most celebrated Marvel villains of all time lately because one of. But the thing is, and even Thanos, they're doing very bad things for what they perceive to be a logical good, and I think a lot of audiences resonate with these modern depiction of villains because they're not so cut and dry.
But I think anime does villains significantly better than traditional like movies and media because you have a longer time period to kind of see both sides.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Thanos, you see him only in one movie, let's just say. Right. And it's like it's kind of harder to be on his side at all. Yeah. Especially because you have freaking Peter Parker over there. I don't feel so good.
I don't feel so good, Tony Stark. but that's the thing. Like, but even despite not seeing too much airtime of Thanos, I feel like his logic is not too crazy. It's an exaggerated view of what is considered definitely a logical conclusion, but he's taken it way too far, and it's a recognition by the audience that like.
I think everyone can agree on the conclusion. They just don't agree on how you get there.
Exactly. And I think for me, it's either that.
A very interesting how you get there is what makes a really compelling villain in my book.
Right. And the other kind of villain that I know personally for me, which will lead into my first favorite villain of anime, is that a villain that isn't necessarily out with an agenda, but solely driven by their selfish desires in the moment. And
one of mine is like that too, so I can definitely agree with you.
No one depicts that better for me than Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter. That man is a chaotic evil, just about. But the thing is, his character is consistent. Why I love him so much is that he's insanely consistent. He's driven from the moment we meet him that he just lives for the thrill of the battle. He wants to defeat worthy opponents, and the more worthy the opponent, the more he literally lusts to go after him. That whole scene, gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So Hisoka is the kind of villain I like because there's that moment in the Greed Island arc where he teams up with Gon because him and his team, their objective in the moment aligns with his. And he works with Kurapika earlier in the series to try to get at the Phantom Troop leader because he just yearns to fight against him. So he works with a hero we care about in that particular scenario because of his end goal. It happens to align with one of our heroes. Later in the Greed Island arc, same thing. They have to get a certain card. They have to get it from this pirate troop. And the only way to do so is to join forces. So a villain whose objective and his agenda is solely selfish, but it may or may not align with our heroes, makes for very interesting storyline potential. And I love...
Definitely, because his alliances are constantly shifting.
They are.
In the moment, even. But there's 1 second he could want to kill Gon, and the next he could be like, I actually love this dude. Let's help him. You know?
Let's help him out. There's definitely an air of respect for Gon, who is an actual Nen genius. Like, there's no denying that. And he can't deny it either. He actually sees this boy as a prodigy to the point where he could at any point, snuff that potential out. Right. But he never does. Why? Because the one consistent thing about that villain is his own agenda for the thirst of worthy opponents. And he sees that so early in Gon and Killua, and that is his whole main objective. Right. And I think when it comes to like villainy, it's selfish objectives make for a good, compelling villain, because it doesn't necessarily align them with evil, just themselves. Now, you said you had a particular villain that kind of aligned with this particular this mindset of this chaotic evil, but very
I think I actually have two, but I'm just going to start off with Kisuke Urahara.
Ooh.
And this is from Durara.
Yeah, there you go.
What I find really interesting about Kisuke is he plays literally every side, like literally every side. He's in the colorless gang with all these guys.
Yes.
He's selling information to the mafia. He's selling information to Shishuo. He's selling information to everyone, right?
Yes.
So he's giving them information on each other because he's also a part of all of these groups.
He's clever.
It's like he's just like the classic, some guys just want to watch the world burn.
He's like the little finger. He's like the little finger of that world where he's just like, I will be on every side as long as it's to my advantage.
Right.
It's my advantage I care about. It's the selfish through line. I love that.
Right.
I love that.
That's what I was saying, is he just really kind of aligns with that selfish desire to just kind of play with all these people.
Right.
Because, you really see he gets really interested in, like, playing with all these people. There's that girl on the roof that he basically was trying to make commit suicide just to see if he could.
Right. But
he's just trying to see what exactly his powers are of, like, persuasion and, like, his blackmailing skills. And, like, one thing I found also interesting is, he's got this weird rivalry with Shishuo.
Oh, yeah.
Where the only guy he's kind of like, he kind of thinks of him as a monster, not a human.
Right.
And so what's cool is he keeps trying to get this monster to kill him, to, like, basically, like, fall into being a monster.
Do you feel there's an air of respect there because he sees that kind of potential in Shishuo?
I think he's a lot like Hisoka in that regard, where, he wants... I don't know. He's a way more chaotic, in my opinion, than Hisoka, because he really is playing every side at all times. It's not like his allegiances are shifting. He's just always, like, playing every side.
I like that.
So he's, like, so chaotic, and I think the fact that he's like trying to get Shishuo to, like, take his humanity and throw it away to kill him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And Shishuo is, like, basically invincible, right? So
yeah,
he
actually cannot be touched.
Right. So it's like, there is very little chance that he's gonna win this duel, but he keeps trying to make it happen.
That endless pursuit,
right,
is an interesting.
He's always out there looking for something.
Right. Do you feel that makes him in a way relatable to the general audience? I mean, what person doesn't have this unachievable goal? I mean, anyone who's passionate about anything is always working for something, even if it is some kind of evil. I think to that end, there's a villain that I had in mind that I find a relatable villain is a villain who is fueled by something we can all see a little bit of ourselves in. And I think every villain has some piece that's relatable, or else it would not be compelling to the viewer. Right. There's a this is getting a little bit into our history, but we had a history teacher back at our old school that big film buff, this guy, but he told me one quote I'll never forget, is that the best jokes and the best lies both have one thing in common, and they all are centered around a nugget of truth.
Right.
Because there's something in there that we can recognize as a bit of truth, a bit of something we can relate to. And when it comes to a relatable villain, there isn't one more exaggerated but more on point to that for me than Envy from Full Metal Alchemist. Because Envy, amongst all the homunculi, you think the other homunculi, there's pride, who's clearly fueled by it, greed, fueled by greed, he just wants all the power, gluttony is just literally what the word is. He wants.
He's a fat bastard.
That man, I wanna eat that. That's his whole character. Is I'm gonna go eat that man. I'm gonna go eat that woman.
I'm gonna go nom.
Yeah, and Lust is a little different. She's got more of a backstory to her, which
Right.
I do like. But Envy of all of the homunculi are like. When the true form, and spoilers for Fullmetal Alchemist, but it's literally top tier anime, so if you haven't seen it at this point, you should really go watch it, and I'm not ruining too much. Is
Brotherhood or regular?
Brotherhood first, and then you should go watch regular, because regular's got an interesting
No,
ending.
I'm saying, which Envy are you talking about?
I'm talking about Brotherhood specifically.
Okay, good.
Brotherhood specifically, yes. If you haven't seen much or need a refresher, Envy has the ability to shapeshift into any person. He's used this to kind of commit pseudo assassinations, really drive some serious point plots in Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. But at the end of the day, Envy is just a little worm,
Right.
just yearning for what everyone else has, and that kind of speaks. The core of Envy as a villain also speaks to the power set of that villain, where he gains from this fuel of insecurity. He is loaded with vulnerabilities personally. And there's never been a human alive, I think, that hasn't felt this insecurity of wanting to be what they see someone else in, either in media in their real life or these vulnerabilities and personally, but it's kind of you put on a mask a little bit, and that's what Envy is doing, and that's the entire character of Envy, and I love that.
Right.
Where no one is truer, I think, to the
Sin
character
that they represent.
Yes, the sin they represent, or just the character they're trying to portray. Everything extends from that. Their power set, what triggers them, what gets them, heated, and I think when it comes to relatable villains, Envy's up there for me. I love it a lot. I can't imagine, and for me, plot impact is a big deal.
Sure.
And killing May Hughes was such a big pivot point for the Elrich brothers, and that really kind of guided them for the rest of the story to work against these homunculi, because they learned that they killed one of their really good comrades, and this needs to be a driving force for how we find the Philosopher's Stone and how we keep going. So in terms of plot impact, Envy is tops in Brotherhood, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that you brought up a good point, that the villain can't be just a bad guy in the world. It has to be somehow brought back to the protagonist and directly affecting them,
Right.
Or else the rest of the story is going to really have a hard time kind of getting there.
Right. How do you fit something like that in there? You have to write the story around that villain. What are you going to do there?
Right. So that I mean that's a pretty good point that I think is important to what makes a good villain. They have
Solid
to be
villains.
hammering something home with the main character.
Right. And also Envy getting absolutely blasted by Mustang was one of the most satisfying.
Just a little snap.
So spicy.
Snap.
That man is spicy as shit. And Envy got the short end of that stick. Oh my God. He got for a ride. Untouched. Untouched by anything good. Envy just sucks. So great villain.
Yeah, so one of my next villain is Sosuke Aizen from the Bleach saga.
Easy pickings.
Yeah,
That's a good
so
one.
what I love about him is when you're watching the first arc, you think this guy's a really good dude. He's nice to everyone that you see. He looks like a freaking dweeb.
Right.
And then that reveal that he's been the true villain. So, I'm not going to spoil anything here because it's 25 million years old. This isn't a spoiler.
It's Bleach.
He's a
man.
bad
Big
guy.
Three. He's a bad guy, yeah.
So, for most of the Sarate Rukia retrieval arc, you think that he's dead.
What a great reveal.
You see
reveal.
an image of him up there, basically stapled to a wall with Zompak toes, and you're like, yo, this guy got absolutely
You can't hit
wrecked.
me mid-sip with that. That's good shit.
And what's even nuts is you're like, holy shit, a captain just got dropped, apparently with ease.
And it's funny because in that arc, that seems whoa, that's crazy.
Right.
Someone dropped him. But up to the point, even after he fights, he saves Rukia and fights Byakuya?
Byakuya.
Excuse me. I've had a hard time pronouncing these names. Like, that seemed to be a forgotten incident.
Right.
Right? And that brings up an interesting point about villains. Do you feel that Aizen encapsulates the great villain reveal?
I was literally about to say, I think this was among the best anime villain reveals.
It was good.
Ever.
It was really
possibly
good.
Like top 5.
Oh, yeah.
I think, what I love about him is his flip to villain is so jarring to the viewer. You're like, first of all, you think he's dead, and then he just shows up and stops, Ichigo's Bankai with a finger.
Oh, yeah. Click.
Yeah, and
you're
like, oh,
done.
Absolutely shit. You're like,
yeah.
Absolutely holy F.
Oh, my God.
So that's just the start, right? He slicks his hair back. He looks like this badass now.
Boom.
And then you realize he goes to Waco Mundo and just subjugates the entire Hollow race.
And that's amazing too, because like Hollows up to that point were the main antagonistic force of the whole series. I know they were infiltrating what we consider to be the death gods.
Right.
And they're the ones that were keeping the peace amongst the human realm. But he goes in and just slaps the shit, just makes babies
Literally
of them.
all of them. Like,
yes.
Even all the hierarchy and kings and all that. What's like you're saying, these are the big bads so far. As these like, Gillian class and all these other classes of Hollows. And he just walks in and he takes the next couple classes up and just smacks them all and says, look, you serve me now.
Yeah.
And by the way, I took 2 captains from the Serate, so now they're crippled for like a significant period of time. And now, he's building this army.
What a beautiful
And you're just
play.
like, oh my God, this guy just absolutely like savagely outthought everyone.
Yes.
Because nobody saw this coming, right?
Well, almost nobody. And we'll talk about him
and
soon.
we'll get to my boy later. No, but and some other things I really love about him is he's able to like delay his gratification for so long.
Yes.
If you think back through Bleach, he knew about the Hogyokyu when he created the Vizards.
Yes.
Unintentionally, intentionally, whatever. When he was playing that experiment,
and that was just an experiment. That was just him rough drafting his actual
with
plan.
A ton of captains.
And was that like 100 years before the story of Ichigo?
It was a long time.
I think it was like literally a century. He was waiting that long. I know it's not long in the lifespan of a Shinigami, but at the same time,
it's still delayed gratification.
And I think that's a really interesting point. Like a villain who has his own agenda but is willing to wait this slow burn. He isn't just coming out like busting y'all shit. Let's go.
Well,
no,
theoretically, with his Kyoka Suigetsu, he could have probably taken on Yamamoto early on.
He could have taken on. He did. Well, the thing is, I'm
saying early on though. He probably could have just said, "Fuck it, let's do this."
Well, actually, you bring up Yamamoto was a good point, because when it comes to Long Con, he went to Hekamundo. He actually was creating modified Arrancar.
Right.
And who did he create solely with literally no objective, brain power, or anything else in their essence other than to deal with his...
I think his name is Wonder Weiss the Extinguisher.
Wonder Weiss the Extinguisher. That's literally... This guy was scheming a way to a pinpoint accuracy to defeat every single individual of threat in the entire Godi 13, to the point where the captain, he made a creature who can't speak, who can't think. He literally lives just to extinguish the flames of his Sanbakuto. What a ballin' move.
Right.
Like, what a ballin' ass move. Like, your whole world is for one man's eradication. And there's nothing this guy could do about it. And guess what? There was nothing he could do about it. And he was right. He was so right. The guy who's considered the strongest Shinigami for 1,000 years plus, he schemed a way to defeat him handedly in 1/10 of the time he was considered that strong.
I mean, it was nuts. And then I think another really cool part about his character, at least that I fell in love with, was, he was almost lonely. It's like lonely at the top. I look at Meruem and I look at Saitama, and they're very similar in this fact that they're both just like unbelievably powerful, and they're like, what is my purpose at this point? Like Saitama constantly talks about, or not talks about, but he acts really depressed because he's like, I can't find anyone that would give me a good fight anymore. Like when he absolutely trashes Boros, he's like, oh, I thought you would be strong,
And that gave him a iota of stress.
Right.
Like that was like he was like, okay, you're pretty strong.
He almost felt something
in that moment.
I think Meruem's a lot like that too, because he is literally born to be the perfect organism.
Yes.
And he finally, you remember after the fight with Netero where he's like, this guy's actually kind of a badass, and he's like slowly gaining and ripping off pieces of his arms and limbs and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And he finally, at the end, he goes, wow, this guy actually beat me from the start.
Right.
After he uses his Little Rose, I think is the name of the bomb.
It's like Dirty Rose.
Yeah, something like that.
It was like a poor man. It was a poor man's nuke with poison in it. Are you kidding me?
And he's like, damn it.
Yeah.
But that's also cool because Netero and Aizen are sort of similar too, because their only goal is to be stronger.
Right.
Like at least as far as I can tell, Aizen's really only goal is that, he's like unbelievably strong, and he thinks that, maybe I should go create the Oaken so I can go fight the Soul King and take the crown as being the strongest person in the entire universe.
And he did so because he felt the way the Soul Society and the Soul King were doing things and locking everything together was completely a fallacy. Like that shouldn't be a thing this is. So that was his objective, was he felt the way the world shouldn't be is right now. So he felt he had the power to go make it a different reality. And something that you said was super interesting because Aizen definitely...
Everything I say is interesting, Rick.
Is it? Yeah?
Absolutely everything.
I can't help but agree. But the Higoku or whatever he stole to make... Basically had the power to grant any reality. Like the person who was controlling it, any one of their wishes could become reality. He told Ichigo that your rise to power was just for something for me to test. This was my will. I wanted you to be this strong. But in the end, Ichigo beat him.
Right.
Why is that? Because in the end... Well, actually,
there's a little bit of a tandem team that beats him. We can get to that later.
We are going to get into it, okay? I need you to chill.
All right, I'm chill. I'm chill. No, I'm fine.
Let it out later. We'll get there. But the will that he imposed and wanted to become a reality was actually he wanted to be bested. He didn't want to be at the top.
Right.
And at least if he was.
Or maybe he just made himself believe that to give himself a reason for why the most powerful being in the world just lost.
Right. But I think he wanted he wants
a rival for sure.
Yes, he wanted a rival, but his whole will was a reason to keep growing into infinity. But you can't have that unless someone continuously gets stronger than you, and Ichigo basically one-upped him a couple too many levels,
right,
and then got too big for his own britches and just cucked him, man.
Because he's like, wow, I thought you were going to get really strong, and I can't even feel your spiritual pressure.
Literally jumped another dimension up.
He's like, yeah, I'm actually so far above you right now, you can't feel it.
And
then when they're clashing swords, they're like blowing up mountains, and Aizen's like, wow, I'm getting really, really strong, I guess. And it's like, Ichigo's like, that was me.
He kept wanting for something to be more powerful, and that's why he even evolved mid-fight.
Right. Because
that's what he wanted. He wanted to keep going. So I love Aizen as a character. Yeah, that's a good pick. But what you said about the long con, now that I resonate with a lot, and I think there's a character, and I'm going to say it. I know you haven't watched this part, but I am going to bring it up about why I believe that Kira from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 4 is my favorite. In terms of the long con, because this man, he has no backstory. He just is. He just exists in this city. He, for 15 years, has been murdering just people on the sly, and it's not ruining any plot points for you, I don't think. And y'all go watch JoJo because you are missing out if you are not on the reel. But he'll keep the hand. The most attractive hands of his women victims.
Oh.
And he will date the hands.
Oh.
He is a sociopath on every level. There is no rhyme or reason to what he does, and yet there is because...
I don't know. This guy sounds all right to me.
You're like, hands? Severed hands? I'm in. Let's get in there. But no, for 15 years, he's murdering people literally undetected, and but he also has these like OCD tendencies. Like he kills a man and realizes his socks are mismatched or inside out or just off, so he decides to correct them during and after the murder. Just like that was on his brain. Like he needed to do that. But he's been killing for 15 years, and all he ever wanted to do was live a peaceful existence. He made you care a little bit. And at the end of the arc, and the end of the part, you are actually kind of rooting for Kira in a little bit of a way, which was weird. And a couple of people I've talked to have also kind of agreed with this. Like, yeah, I know he's kind of, what's the scientific term for that? Batshit crazy. He's definitely
Stockholm syndrome, dude.
He's batshit, dude. But at the same time, you're like, I kind of like.
I get it.
I kind of get a little
it
bit.
It leads into my villain.
So I think I just like Kira because and he's very popular. But people love him as a JoJo villain. But I like him a lot because he has all the rhyme and reason that make you resonate with him in a way and kind of root for him a little bit, but enough like crazy that you're just like, you are interesting to watch. You're definitely
like Joker style.
Kind of, yeah, dude. He just does things because he wants to live what he considers a peaceful life. And isn't that what we all want? Just a peaceful life. Dating hands and whatnot.
Well, I was okay with the peaceful life. I'm a little worried about the dating hands part.
Well, it's not. Oh, I went to your fridge for Hot Pocket. You have like 7 hands in there, dude. We got to talk about that.
Let's leave it for the next episode.
Okay, we'll leave it for the next
episode. My last villain is Madara Uchiha.
Oh, what an easy pick, man. That's a good. That's a good call.
First off, I think he's the most well-hyped anime character in the history of the world,
without a doubt.
And if anyone disagrees, I will personally fly to your house.
Oh,
we can have a nice civil conversation, and then I will beat your ass. We can just absolutely go in on that.
He'll make you dinner, pour you wine, and then crack the glass over your
and then
face.
Whip your damn ass.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of what you just said, where he's got a kind of a reasoning that starts to make you feel like maybe he's not that crazy.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, Madara, if you really remember his backstory, where he grows up in this big this is before any of the ninja villages exist, and it's basically just big clans fighting for dominance.
I mean, it was
of what? We're not really sure.
It was called the Warring States era for a reason. They weren't even clans. They weren't even villages. It was just clans. It wasn't even villages. It was just states. They're just warring, and that's all it's classified as.
And so you grow up in this kind of war-torn time, right? You gain this friend from a very young age, and you both are just like, don't tell me what your name is. Let's just be friends. And honestly, this fucking world we live in sucks. They constantly are on the same page about that. We need to change this shit because it's not cool that a 6-year-old is gonna die in a war.
That's a good point you bring up because
a 30-year-old,
someone we consider not just a benevolent force in the ninja world, but one of the strongest forces, if not the unbuffed strongest. He just was naturally that strong forever.
God of shinobi.
Pretty much the god of. Yeah, just his technique. Literally, people were trying to hijack his cells long after his death.
They didn't try.
They did. So the people were trying to get their hands on it. And when they did,
cure to all wounds.
Pretty much. But yeah, it's that guy.
I'm sorry, Rick. Did you just lose half your body? Here's some Hashirama cells.
Oh, dude, it feels so good on my skin. Oh, such regen. But yeah, so it's that guy that your villain, this particular villain, was resonating with for a long time, and he shows how quick a small diversion in philosophy, even coming from such a similar place, could be so drastically different for a character. I love that.
Right, and I think, so first of all, when he shows up on the scene, which the first time you really officially meet him, I mean, there's all this foreshadowing throughout, the Valley of the End has this massive statue to him. They just build all this mythos.
I think it's the first time we actually see his image, right? Is the Valley of the End? Yeah.
And, well, I mean, you see that throughout, right?
Right.
Like, multiple times they go back to the Valley of the End. And it just, like, builds this mythos for him and Hashirama. And then you get to the final war, or the fourth Ninja War, and he freaking finally shows up. And not only does he live up to the hype, this man wipes out, like, 6 battalions of Jonins without even, like, basically trying.
That man was so casual about finessing what on screen, like 75 people.
It had to be more than that, because then he uses his giant majestic fireball
and that was
dragon thing, and he wipes out like 50.
But those 75 was just taijutsu. That was him breaking, like, that was just him getting warmed up again after being dead for a long time.
Yeah,
that was just him getting warmed up, and then he's like, all right, let's stop sleeping on these bitches. Meteor, deuces, 2 meteors.
It's like, oh yeah, just kidding. I'm in an actual second one.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy.
No, but I mean, I think what's really, interesting to me is at that point in the story, everyone is so, like, planetary level strong, like, in the main cast. You kind of forget that Jonins are still freaking badasses.
Yeah.
Like, you forget that these dudes could be S-class, like, no problem, and he's still just absolutely swimming through them.
Yes.
Like, not even difficult. They're like air to him.
Like, people in that era were stoked to get the title of Jonin. Like, they were like, their whole objective was just to be a Jonin.
But even think, the Anbu, to, like, the viewer, are weak as fuck.
Right.
They, like, suck ass.
To
the rest of the world,
in his presence, right?
But to the rest of the world, well, not just his presence. Like, you think Naruto would spank him. You think all these guys,
right?
Because everyone that we are following along with is an absolute genius monster.
That's why we're following them.
Right.
100%, yeah.
And so it kind of, like, it shifts our view to thinking, like, oh, these guys are all just fodder. They are not fodder.
Right.
These guys could be Anbu. These guys could be S-class. These guys can be, like, guards and, all these things. And he's just swimming through all of these guys. And that just really, like, lives up to the hype. That he just comes in, he waxes everyone. He's not even pushing it. Like, he's not even using his, perfect Susanoo at this point.
No, yeah,
he's
even
just spanking everyone.
Yeah, and I think I want to bring up the one point that makes him such a good villain is what you said about the mythos. The mythos of a good villain could lend to him never being on screen again for 7 years. There's 7 years between when Naruto and Sasuke fight as kids in the Valley of the End and when he finally kicks on as an Edo Tensei zombie, and he's in the fight. So we had, if you're watching the show exclusively, that's an entire adolescence worth of time before we get to finally see him, and everyone's stoked as hell to finally see this man finesse some people. Like, I know I was absolutely, like, my jaw was on the floor. Like, that was some good stuff. So yeah, Madara when it comes to, like, hyping a villain, tops. Absolute tops.
But I mean, you look at his past and he had all these, like, this crazy warring states period. And then you also, after they create this village, you see all this prejudice start to seep in towards the Uchihas.
Specifically, yeah.
Right. And so,
that's a good point.
You don't necessarily feel all that, like, against him when he's basically like, look, the way that we're doing this isn't working. He's like, Hashirama, our dream is not realistic. And so he decides, like, this is what I mean. Like, the path that he's taking is really freaking weird, but what he wants is the same.
Right.
He was going to put everyone into an infinite Tsukiyomi.
Yeah.
In order to make sure that there's peace and everyone got to, live a, happy, peaceful life. It's a weird way to get there, but it still gets to the same goal as what, all the protagonists want. And I think that's what really resonated with me. Maybe they completely shit all over his character when they make him die in the dumbest possible way.
Right.
But they also just made him, like, more than planetary strong, and, like, what are you supposed to do to get rid of him,
Yeah.
It was, I kind of wish they had let him kind of play out his story and see kind of what happens. But,
that would actually be pretty cool to see. I mean, you can get some even more rich context about what he's all about. But
totally,
they do. Kishimoto did a really good job of kind of cementing that he is doing this in the objective of peace. And that's a good full circle comment to get back around to why people resonate with certain villains in the modern era, is because you can't argue with the logic if it were in a conversation, not in this enacted crazy big ass plan to trap everyone in a tree. So,
there is that.
But I get what you're saying. What you're trying to get across is that Garlic Jr. from Dragon Ball Z is the greatest villain of all time. That's a good one. That's a good one, I gotta say.
Yeah. Hadn't thought about it, but he is immortal.
He is immortal. That filler piece of shit.
So before we kind of move on to our Kisuke Urahara,
yeah, Ethan said he had
is
spicy,
clearly underrated.
He had a swanky mystery from you right now.
So my question to you, Rick, is how was episode 3 of season 2 of One Punch Man?
Oh boy, dude! I
remember
texting
right?
you. I remember texting you, super excited because I felt that episodes 1 and 2, and the thing I texted you, I want to bring up because it felt like that. The studio was being very, very true to the panels in the manga, like a little too true, like to the point where they're just like showing slightly animated like panel to panel. Like I can watch like Durzo Blint on YouTube who does like they call it dynamic manga reading, where they'll just like show panel to panel, and episode 1 and 2 weren't great to me, but episode 3, oh my god, like. They put some money into that animation. I was happy. It was fluid. They had to show Garo's original fighting style in a way that was fluid because that's the whole point of flowing water, crushing rock. And
well, not only that, the story, the amount that they fit into episode 3 was kind of insane.
It was dense, right?
I was surprised they were able to fit in like so much because you had basically Bang expelling his student because this dude's got no chance of fighting with Garo and he didn't want him to die.
That's one big plot point.
Right, massive plot point. Second plot point, his brother, he calls him to come help him.
2.
Yeah, so they join forces.
Yes.
And then another plot point is, his student comes to Saitama and the whole crew, and then he's like, what's going on with Bang? Something's going on.
Right.
And so you're kind of like building on those first 2.
Yeah.
And then you get Tank Top Master and all those guys.
Tank Top versus Garo.
Right.
And he gets
coming up to Garo and saying, you hurt my A class, B class buddy.
Right.
I'm going to fuck you up.
And that basically just power scaled Garo as it is right now by taking out a low to mid tier S class hero with fairly relative ease when he finally pulled out that fighting style.
Right.
Like, and it showed his durability. It showed his martial arts finesse. It showed the importance of martial arts in season 2's overtones. And then Saitama got a ticket to the martial arts tournament.
Right.
And as he's shopping for a wig, he has his first encounter with Garo. Garo tries to smack Saitama, and Saitama's like, bruh, I'm shopping.
Kablam!
And literally knocks his ass out.
God.
And Garo, like, I read, that's one of the few mangas I read was the One Punch Man manga, and they did all of those panels beautiful justice. So I have a lot more hope.
But what's even cooler is you just meet so many characters in this one episode.
I was...
And, Robo, Pat, and Rick were all scared at the beginning. They're like, oh man, this season might suck.
Yeah, we programmed fear in RoboPat.
The animation looks like ass, and I was like, yeah, but the story is gonna carry it regardless.
You were right on that regard.
You get so much story development in season 2.
Yeah, and I just noticed for the first time I noticed that Elder Centipede, if anyone's actually reading the mangas, in the title sequence, and it's one of the best fights, I think. So I'm really stoked to see some of this. If what I saw in episode 3 carries through the season, I think myself and fans and all my friendos that are listening right now will be at least satisfied in a way.
Sounds good.
Oh, yeah,
now let's try to move on to frankly a waste of our time because Kisuke's underrated and there's really nothing you can say to make it.
So if there's one thing you're going to learn about me over the course of listening to this particular podcast is I like taking spicy takes and defending them as best as I can. And we had the daddy debate a while back, and I think I was still 100% right, and I think others would agree. And I think everyone will agree. I don't know.
I mean,
don't even know
your mom and dad don't count as others.
oh my God. Like, I know I talked about anime, and I told you that in confidence, and they think I'm crazy because, like, oh,
I'm
you
just
watch
saying-
Japanese cartoons, you're so weird, you should get back in my basement. That's weird. I know, but whatever. They don't matter.
If only
But
your family members agree with you, it doesn't mean that you're right.
that's not true. Whatever, man.
Yeah,
Dude.
you're totally right, honey.
Thanks, Cheryl.
That was your mom.
That was my mom.
Yeah.
Oh, you nailed her, dude.
So go ahead and tell me why you think he's overrated, because
okay.
not only do I know that he's underrated, I have plenty of, data points to explain that.
You got a dense page in this boy.
So go ahead.
So the one thing I feel like Urahara is kind of there for is I do respect him. Now, one thing I will say is it's not that I don't like him. I love Urahara Kisuke as a character, but I think he is overhyped and overrated, and there's a couple reasons why.
Wrong. Go ahead.
Hush your mouth, Ethan. I will have Robopat delete your face. Urahara's genius has been touted through the entire series. But if you look at other, comparable level genius applications of that archetype in other anime, say maybe L from Death Note, in comparison, these other geniuses seem that it never feels like asspulls. They never feel like asspulls. And Urahara's, all of his geniuses, one, that man seems to be unable to fight without prep. That man needs prep all the time for his intelligence to work. He had 100 years. He was there when the Visitors were created, and he knew what Aizen was, and he was shunned from the Soul Society. But he had 100 years with an intellect greater than Aizen's, who basically all he had to show was a Kido stuffed inside another Kido that the whole plan required Ichigo weakening him to the point where that Kido would take hold to trap him. And if you're reading the manga, that still didn't do it. His plan failed in the end. So as someone who has a mind greater than Aizen, it really didn't show much for him. His plan didn't really, it bought the Soul Society time in the overarching scheme of things, but it didn't get the job done. And that was with a century of prep. So I don't get where people are like, oh, he's super intelligent. Aizen said he was smarter than I am. Yeah, his intellect might be better, but in maybe a scientific sense, when it comes to combat intelligence, he doesn't seem all that smart to me. He doesn't. Like, it doesn't seem quickly applied.
All right, so should I just tell you why you're wrong now, or do you have anything else to say?
Oh, that's just my first point, but you can go ahead with your triflings. And go ahead.
Well, it's a pretty long, dense paragraph of why you're wrong, so if you got more, you should go now.
I'm going to save it. I'll save it.
First of all, Captain of the 12th Division, he starts a scientific research institute within the Sarate. Beforehand, they don't have this group to really do anything. So when you're talking about him being less like battle intelligent and all this stuff, that never was his goal to be battle intelligent. He's just like a mad scientist in a lab trying to create things. Just because his intelligence didn't foresee Aizen coming out of nowhere and waxing him, in my opinion, cannot overrate him. You got to remember, his whole, the reason he was doing this is because he enjoyed science and he just liked creating things. At no point was he like, I'm going to, he wasn't Batman where he has a kill switch on every captain. He's like, if this guy attacks me, I'm going to do this. If this guy attacks me, I'm going to do this.
But people told him like he has that. People told him. I read the forums. I read all the shit. I did a lot of research, and everyone talks him up like, oh, he is the smartest Shinigami to ever have been around. He is better.
But I think in a lot of cases, that's true. Being battle intelligent doesn't necessarily mean that he's not, the smartest one that exists. He discovers Mayori, Kuratsuchi, who's now, Captain of the 12th, who has carried on his work to kind of continue the science revolution within the Sarate.
Right.
But also, let me just give you a few of his inventions, and maybe that'll change your mind. First off, soul candy. These mod soul, artificial souls. Basically enables the rest of the show. So let's start there. Without that, Ichigo's body just lying dead in school and all this stuff gets a little weird. So he enables the show that way, which is sick. He also creates what is called the Ten Sentai, which is the divine transfer body, which allows the Shinigami to forcibly push their Zanpakuto spirits into this like kind of dummy-looking thing and confront them so that they're able to take the time it takes to unlock your Bankai from 10 plus years
I'm well aware.
Down to 3 days.
And people are like, oh, he's the only other person besides Ichiko to complete that kind of training. No, he made that training. I'm not denying his scientific intelligence. I'm just saying people everywhere has been saying his intelligence equals his combat strength. And that is so false. It's unreal.
I don't see how I'm saying that, so I still think he's underrated in a lot of ways. Oh my god! Especially because you're kind of claiming that his scientific and ingenuity and inventions don't give him the right to be a loved captain.
I just think it overrates him in the large scheme of the show. I want to let you keep going.
So
y'all can't see it right now, but Ethan's got the smuggest look on his face. Oh my god.
So he also created the Hogyoku, which is the entire point of the whole show.
The entire reason everything goes to shit, but continue.
Well, think about it. Just because you are a scientific guide, this is what I really want to get across about him. His intentions are for pure discovery. He does not, attribute like bad intentions to any of his kind of inventions. Think about the mod souls are now illegal because, you're able to basically like forcibly push people out of their bodies, like real people.
Pretty much.
So it's kind of dangerous. Then the Hogyoku is like the cause of a lot of strife, but he creates it not as a tool to get stronger. It's just how people use it. It's just like, guns. Originally they were for hunting or something like that, like bows and arrows. They're for hunting. They're not for killing people. But it ends up happening that, this tool just has to be reused for something else.
I guess the one thing I thought about that was if he made it and that was his objective, why is he not untouchable? Why did he not go down a path like Aizen did, but for good, and he could literally be a god for the Soul Society?
That's just not his character. He's just the chillest, like, coolest guy you could possibly meet. Like, throughout
he just
his
seems
entire...
so situational that like...
His whole character arc is just inventing shit and just, like, seeing what he can do with it. That's it. He has no, like, aspirations to be the strongest. He has no aspirations to be the best.
Right. But I think that people overrate him because they take that raw intelligence that he could be using for anything besides pure discovery and says, oh, he can defeat... I've literally seen so many people like, oh, he can defeat anybody. He can outsmart anybody.
Well, given prep time, easily.
Right. But he needs prep time. That's all it's all he's got. If he were to be thrown into a battle and attacked out of nowhere,
I'm just saying, let's be careful about Aizen because he totally had prep time, like 50 whole years. Remember the slow burn we were talking about?
Right. So did Urahara because he was there at the conception of understanding.
Dog, the problem is just because he has a theoretically weaker, Shikai.
It's a glorified Sengetsu. That's all it is.
I mean, Benihime is weaker than Kyoka Suigetsu. Complete hypnosis. What the fuck are you supposed to do about that? And honestly, it doesn't matter how smart you are. If you're caught in it, you're fucked. That's why he never fights him originally. Is he's already seen it. He has no choice. So Aizen he had more cards hidden because he was able to hypnotize everyone that saw his Bankai originally to become a captain. But that's not... How could he possibly have, like, plotted everyone's life course and be like, yeah, Aizen's going to turn into a bad guy one day, so I'm going to stop, like, interacting with him in any way. Like, I think Shinji basically felt Aizen was a dickhead. He's like, this guy's fake AF.
This guy's a fucking dickhead.
So he never like basically talks to him or watches his Bankai or anything like that. So he's not stuck in Kyoike Suigetsu because he had made that choice that this guy's an asshole. I'm just not gonna not
gonna interact with this dude.
But Kisuke doesn't have he was part of the second division, I think, at that point. He might be captain at that point, but
I think he was captain.
Okay, he probably was, but he has no reason to believe this guy's gonna be a bad guy. So blaming him for being caught in complete hypnosis seems a little weird to me. So I don't think you can say that he's overrated because he gets beaten by Aizen when Aizen had the upper hand from the start, not particularly because he was smart, but he just had a better skill set to deal with this situation.
Yeah, I mean that. So I think that's what always kind of gave me that overrated feeling for him. There's another reason for it, but it was his whole plan to stop Aizen. Like at some point, he must have created. He said, "I created this keto specifically to stop you,
right,
and to eat your issue from the inside out." And in the moment, it looked like that was his big brain play and it didn't work. But that's irrelevant. I would say that's a little bit relevant after we learn that there's actually another keto shoved inside of it to be a ceiling keto. But he could never, if Ichigo didn't live up to his particular expectations, which he didn't even know that he was going to get trained by Isshin. He had no idea. He came out at the end. No,
I don't think that's true. Because
he came out at the end and said, "Oh, I knew Ichigo was always thanks to Ichigo, my plan worked perfectly." That's not a plan. I
think it is.
That's a whole random aspect.
Isshin and Kisuke know each other,
but Isshin didn't know that the cleaner was gone from the middle realm, so he utilized it in the moment. That was not part of any plan. That training to get the final Getsu Tetsugo was never part of. It couldn't have been part of Urahara's plan. It couldn't have been.
They knew the cleaner was missing way before that, so I don't know.
The
problem is you didn't see all the in-betweens. He might have told Isshin, "Hey, train him in here in the Danku," or whatever it is.
But they didn't know because Aizen destroyed it just on his way to the real town. When Isshin and Ichigo were in there, Isshin finally noticed that, oh snap, it's gone. We can use this. Isshin, if anything, was the one who was really on the fly, was like, okay, now that we know we have all this time delineation.
I think I'm going to give Kisuke a 6 out of 5 for trusting in Ichigo.
Jesus
Christ.
That's not...
He knew that Ichigo had a 6 out of 5. He knew Ichigo had a 6 out of 5 for limit breaking.
Of course we knew that, but at the same time, Urahara could never have guessed that shit. It was evident because he put the keto inside of Aizen way before Isshin was in the picture in that same battle. Isshin and Ichigo went to go try to find Aizen as they went, and then that part of the plan suddenly materialized. Urahara never saw that one coming. So, the other thing too is his Bankai is a little... People hype up his Bankai because he can heal any injury, but it doesn't really do any damage. He's a support-type Bankai at best, which means he must fight with others all the time when he uses his Bankai.
Well, he's invincible. He could just slowly hit him with shit.
It's basically Zipper Man from Part 5 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but I know you haven't seen that yet, but...
I'm just saying he could constantly, throw keto at him.
Okay.
Until they die.
Which I guess that's what he
invincible.
Did. I'm not saying his skills aren't dope.
There's other cool shit he did, like the Tenkai Ketchu, which was the world-shifting binding posts, which were the 4 massive posts that switched fake Karakura Town with Karakura Town, which basically moved the Oken, which kind of, the whole point of Aizen is that he's trying to get this Oken, and obviously he shows up and he knows that it's not the real place.
Right.
But it did delay him enough to where it ends up working out. And I don't know, I think with what the information he had and all these things that he's been doing throughout this series, he does build a pretty strong case for Ichigo to get really strong. He's helped him along the way. I mean, this kid basically for 2 months or something is a Shinigami, and then he gets his Bankai within the same arc where he just gets his ass beat by Renji. It's like he's making such serious strides, and most of that is because Kisuke's helping him along. So, like, saying that he didn't know that he was going to get massively strong, like, of course, but it's just one tiny portion. I think if you look at his bill of work, like, as a like,
look at his resume, so to speak.
Yeah, his
hey
CV.
man, Urahara Kisuke, I'm a pretty dank sensei.
Yeah.
Here's my
if you look at his Cumulus Veritas.
All right, let's see what Urahara, you got some pretty good showings here. It says you got a crazy IQ, but
you invented Gigai too? Interesting.
That's so weird. Like, when can you start?
He also he kind of subdues the holification process of the original Wizards. Remember, they all die if Kisuke doesn't save them. So, like, give him some credit. Basically, the entire end battle does not go the way it goes if he doesn't save those guys and, like, kind of keep them secret from the Serete.
That's a good point. Okay. So Ethan, the reason why Ethan and I are even having a discussion in the first place is because we were thinking of topics for this particular podcast, and we were talking about underrated characters, and Urahara Kisuke came up in your list, and I had the spicy hot take of saying, well, I don't think he's a little bit overrated, and he says, oh my God, you are so on. So
I just think you literally look at he's even been growing throughout the, series too in certain ways. Like, you see some pretty sick feats fighting.
He seems so stagnant.
He waxes Yami. Absolutely waxes that guy. The 10th/0th Espada.
0th, yeah.
I don't know. I think he obviously is a strong fighter. He waxes everyone in the
He just always seemed like a faux genius to me, man. Like, there's so many bits of his quote-unquote plans that required a little bit, an insane amount of prep time. You could never, if you surprise attacked Urahara, he might be screwed, in my opinion. He'd have to use his Bankai. He'd have to use it, and at best, he could survive but not be defeating anybody.
I mean, he knows 90 level Hado.
Right, but at the same time, he had to bring in Grimjow to help him in the 1,000-Year Blood War arc because his Bankai is completely defensive/supportive. He needed to bring in somebody into his little realm of his Bankai.
How about this? I have a question.
Yeah.
I think it's like Hado 99 that Yamamoto tries to use on Aizen, where basically you just like you forsake an arm or something.
Right, you basically get sacrificed and you just fuck them with like a lava pillar.
Yeah. Could Kisuke go into Bankai, do that, survive it,
rinse
gain
and
the
repeat?
effing system?
You don't feel like Reishu is a limited supply? Like, it's kind of like chakra? Like you can only do it so many times?
Of course it is, but I think Kisuke's at least captain level, and all the captains are genuinely ridiculously strong.
Right.
So,
if they were so strong, then why did Yamamoto can only do it once?
Because he lost an arm.
Right. So you're saying if he were to have had unlimited arms, he could do it enough times.
This is pure theory here. Do you think he's in his Bankai that basically allows him to heal from any wound? Can he use this like sacrificial Hado and just kind of game the system and just keep screwing people? And if he can, why the hell did he do that? Am I the writer now?
Are you the writer now?
I think I am.
You should have written this whole arc. You should have done that. That's what he should have done. Screw Grimjow. He should not have come in at all.
Yeah, why?
He should just be burning bitches with lava pillars.
That's what I'm saying, man.
Just rinse and repeat. Getting that arm back. Okay. So, I like this discussion because I still hold my opinion he's a bit overrated.
Yeah, but you're still wrong. It doesn't matter.
No, I'm not saying that he's a bad character. I just think he gets more hype than he deserves. That's all I'm saying. People hype his ass up to no end, and I'm like, yes, he's a cool character. I like him. Like, I like him for what he is in the story. He's a perfectly placed character for his for his what he needs to be in the story for Ichigo. But I just think that I don't know. People just wank the fuck out of him, man. Like
well, he's cool.
Give him the rusty rudder, man. They really kind of they give him the
old how do you do?
Yeah, they give him the real yank, and I'm like, come on, guys. Like, he's cool. He's super cool. He doesn't. I think Kenpachi is leagues cooler as a character arc than Urahara.
I can agree with that, but
right.
That's not the debate.
I know it's not. And so, as for the debate,
I won. Okay, thank you.
No, I'm gonna drop kick
and
you.
For that,
as soon as these mics cut off, I'm coming over there and giving you a suplex. Like that's what's happening. I'm kicking you out of this chair.
Well,
but I think what this is
Stone Cold Steve Austin your ass. So whatever.
Oh my God, it is so 9 rounds in your foyer right now. Like, that's what's gonna happen right after this episode. Y'all heard it first. If someone's got some missing teeth next episode, it's gonna be one Ethan, 2. It's gonna happen. Coming for you, dude.
Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for listening.
Yeah,
we had a blast this episode.
This is a fun episode. I think I want to do this particular segment again as an over underrated. Like we'll take a character, and whether our opinions on it on a particular character, we'll take a stance. We'll try to do research and try to build a case in one side,
right.
And then we'll talk about our actual thoughts. Because, like I said, I really like Urahara Kisuke.
Right.
I really do. But I felt like it'd be a spicy take to really hammer in that he could be overrated.
Yeah, I mean, it was a spicy wrong take. And I think, hey, guys, we really appreciate you listening.
Man, I appreciate it, too.
Please rate our podcast if you can on iTunes.
We
hope to be on Spotify pretty soon here.
That'd be cool. We got to start a business for that. But I hope you brush up on your coding skills. I want you to see you code a 6-star in iTunes. Give us a 6-star rating. First of its kind. First of its name. I want a 6-star rating.
I mean, preferably what you'll do is you'll download the episode, you'll listen to it, you'll love it, you'll delete it, you'll re-download it,
and give us that 10-star on the
sly. Give us 10 stars.
Yes. So what are we talking about next time?
Yeah. So next time, I think we should. I've got this topic that I'm really interested in. Is like, what about Japanese/Japan culture?
Ooh.
Like, really intrigues you as a weeb?
We are weebs after all. We have to live up to the Weebology, the study of weeb. And everything involved, so we have to do that.
Right. I mean, you gotta love Japan. It's interesting shit.
Japan's where it all comes from, right?
That's where it originated. Is there like parts in anime that kind of like trigger that in you?
Right, where like they exhibit that culture of Japan that may be different from general Western American culture, just where we're standing. But I mean, just Western culture in general. And we'll talk about it. We'll see where anime shines in that particular cultural regard. And
indeed.
The other thing I want to talk about is something we've been tossing around for a while is a segment called Pitch or Pitch, where we will take a show that each of us have watched.
Pitch or ditch, I think that's better.
Oh my God. Yo, that was actually on the spot. That's legit. Dude, Ethan, kickbacks on the reel. I don't know who's kicking back at you at this point, but someone's kicking back. Give him money. Just give him some Patreon money. We don't have one, but we'll give him some.
You know what? We'd start a Patreon if you're willing to pledge us money.
It's called Killer Kickbacks, man.
What would be
Killer
stupid?
Kickbacks. It'd be dumb not to. But Pitch or Ditch, where each of us will pitch a show that we'll convene before the episode. We'll see what we haven't watched. We'll see if we come with one. And we'll get a couple minutes each to pitch a show to each other. And we have to go watch it.
And all of you.
And all of you. You should also watch it and see how you feel. You may love it. You may hate it. But we'll be the determining factor for each of y'all. And we'll give it at least 3 episodes. 3-episode rule must apply.
Of course.
Yes. But in maybe an episode or 2 after that, we'll come back, see how much we've watched, see our review and how good our pitch was to each other, and we'll decide. Pitch or ditch.
I love it.
I love it. That's actually a good one. That's such a catchy thing.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you later.
Yeah.
Peace.
See ya. Bye.